Hello, my name is Nick, and on this episode we have Jonathan Taylor, who I'm excited to introduce you to. He is doing some amazing things in the world, helping people regulate their nervous systems, and just a really interesting guy with a really amazing energy. And I'm just really excited for you guys to hear what he has to say. So he started his journey as a football player at the collegiate level, ended up with concussions, and it eventually led to his kind of a low point, a breakthrough moment, if you will, that set him on a course to not only heal himself, but to help others now with a number of things that he's doing, with him becoming a registered clinical hypnotherapist, doing the training to administer somatic relational trauma-informed practices for medicine-assisted facilitation. He's done work with Sharon Stanley and her somatic transformation. He's a medical Qigong practitioner, and it's just an all-around good dude. Hello, and welcome to Collective Rising Conversations. Today we have Jonathan Taylor with us. Hello, Jonathan. How are you doing?
Pretty good. How about yourself, Nick?
Excellent. Thank you for taking the time to be a part of this conversation. That my hope is that people will get some benefit out of it, and it's just my way to help people, I guess, in a small way, just get through whatever it is that they need to get through in order to raise their consciousness. And then when we all are doing the work and raising our own individual consciousnesses, that has the effect of raising the collective, which is something that I'm really passionate about. And I feel like we have that in common.
Yeah, for sure. I'm curious of where you want to kind of steer the ship a bit.
Perfect. Well, I'm going to start with, I'd like to set an intention for the session. So I'll go first and just kind of state what my intention is for the conversation here, and then I'll give you a chance to do the same, and then we'll just dig in. So my intention for this session is to have a deep, meaningful conversation that brings out the medicine that you're bringing to the world, and can be of benefit to people listening to this episode, and give them something that they can use in their lives to help them just be the best version of themselves. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think my intention is, I think more sharing more kind of my personal story and my challenges around kind of this space. Like we use, mental health, but it's kind of more than that. There's an aspect of just kind of aligning into that true nature. And when you kind of slip from integrity, things kind of get stirred up in a way. And it's sometimes easy to get lost and not have the resources and don't know where to look. And I think I'm just wanting to share kind of the things that have really helped me, that I now guide and teach others. So there's my intention.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's amazing. So we'll just, we'll start with just kind of a general question here of I'd just like you to share more about your personal journey and how you're going through the college athletic world, and how that led to you being in front of me today doing the wonderful things you're doing in the world.
Yeah, for sure. My background came from competitive football and snowboarding. Played football at the college level. Eventually got a kind of a career-ending knee-ending injury. But through that, there was a time period where we didn't know a lot about concussions and the impacts of concussions. and what that all meant. And so from playing football and competitive snowboarding from the age of 10 and being a person that was a defensive player, he used his head a lot, experienced a lot of concussions. And then it wasn't kind of stepping back and realizing the impacts of that. Now we kind of know that I think it's even more than 90% of college football players who've played football on average will experience CTE. So a lot of that post-concussion issues. And that kind of started to come into play as I kind of moved out of football. And so I moved out of football, kind of got into CrossFit for a bit, very much go hard as you can at everything. Ended up working in commodities, in trading and marketing. And from there, just constantly stressed, constantly very quick kind of triggers. And yeah, through that, just even in the earlier part, losing a kind of a sports performance trainer to suicide, who had also experienced a lot of concussion issues, and then starting to know other athletes in that space that started to have mental health issues in big ways, and starting to see myself in being this very emotionally dysregulated individual. It impacted my marriage in a really big way, which led to a divorce. And then kind of post that divorce, I was kind of in this weird space, like trying to understand my mental health, trying to understand what this meant. And then also ending up having other people kind of through the grapevine also starting to being impacted, and other suicides in my life popping up. From there, I started to understand the impacts of CTE and kind of what kind of happens kind of in the mid to late 30s with some struggles with mental health, and then also the issues later on in kind of late 50s, early 60s with early onset Alzheimer's. And so that kind of was like a kind of a wake up call post my marriage, post this, that like, hey, I need to be doing something different. At the same time, I'm a little bit of a comedian, and I was leaving a job and had all these benefits, and I thought it would be really fun to try to use all these benefits as fast as I could in 2 weeks, and then have a funny kind of story. And one of the things that I thought I use was to go see a hypnotist that would do past life regressions. And so I had this whole like funny story built about how this guy's going to tell me I'm a pharaoh from a lost land and blah, blah, blah. And what happened was when I went into that situation, I dropped into this really deep state of trance, like almost like a flow state in sports, but like for an extended period of time. And in that state of trance, the hypnotist tried to ask me questions, and I started just kind of speaking in a third person, and it was an odd experience. And I came out of that and I was like, what is that? And he was like, oh, that's like channeling. And I was like, you mean like the people that kind of go into this, psychic medium stuff? And he's like, kinda. And I just kind of came out of that just like scratching my head being like, what was that? And it's kind of around the time where sensory deprivation tanks got really popular. I started really going into meditations, going into the like Buddhist temples and doing services there, like chanting. And I really got obsessed with the mind, from yoga, meditation, kind of breath work. But starting to see some success in myself, but then also seeing still these really big emotional kind of outbursty things. I'd be good if I was sitting on my cushion, but when life would happen, I'd get stressed and it would be challenging. It would be really challenging. And, continue to work with it. And then and then my life fell apart. And it's one thing to have a meditation practice when you're sitting on the cushion. It's another thing as things start to unravel. And I noticed my work starting to unravel in a big way. I had a relationship that really kind of hurt in a really big way from that side, and really got to understand a relationship pain at a different level and what that meant. And then I had work and other stuff starting to go off the rails. And then I didn't sleep. And I didn't sleep, or I slept for an average. I think my Fitbit told me 2 hours or 1.5 hours a night for 2 weeks. And the most wild thing about that experience, when you get that sleep deprived, and as a male, I really felt like I couldn't reach out to anybody. And I think that that's probably the biggest thing that I'd like people to take away who hear that, is like, if life trucks you and you're in the hole and you start not sleeping and it's bad, like, it's not a place to grind. Because if you keep just trying to go, you just keep going down this rabbit hole of like a confirmation bias. Like, nobody wants to hear this. I'm fine. But then your body starts to like really start to freak out. I started having panic attacks, which I've never experienced until that point. And a panic attack, for those who know how much it sucks. And for those who don't know, it literally is like, I don't know, a mix of kind of half drowning and half not, and trying to catch your breath when you can't. And it's excruciating. And so even though that was happening, and even though I knew these practices, I couldn't see I was so blind, and I was so trapped in this pattern of thinking. And I felt like I couldn't reach out. I didn't want to bother my guy friends because they have families. This was kind of a big thing. So I kind of isolated, and that isolation led to that 2 weeks. And then I kind of just broke. I was like, I want out. I need to get out of this. I'm done with life. And then, I really started contemplating suicide at a big level, to the point where I was about to do it. I had a plan of going to the river, etc. And was fortunate that I kind of made a comment, and someone who was smart enough to really kind of call the police. And I had two great officers stop me on the street. And that was kind of the low. That was like, fuck. Like, I thought I knew what mental health was, and yet I was still going to throw myself in the river. And at that point, I reached out. I started reaching out to all my friends. I had to do that. And I slowly worked my way out of that. And it took a while. But it was, once I kind of reached out and realized like that moment where it got really surreal, and I was like, okay, it would just kind of, something just kind of opened up in my mind. And I knew that I wasn't going to go out that way. And also, I had a beautiful friend just come hang out with me, and was like my buddy for a solid kind of week of just checking in. And then slowly I started to really understand kind of what this was, what was happening to my body, what was happening to my nervous system, and then started to look at other things. And so I kind of jumped the story a bit, but one thing that kind of happened kind of a bit earlier than that was this passion over the years of getting to understand my mind. I started looking into things like psychedelics. I had a big psychedelic experience with ayahuasca, which kind of led me back to hypnotherapy and the idea of getting into these trance states or meditative states, but in a more purposeful and intentional way, and what could happen there. And so I had become a registered clinical hypnotherapist. I was kind of exploring psychedelics. I saw this, and then I had this, like, call it dark night of the soul that gets tossed around, but a true low. And then from there, it was like, I need to really work and learn trauma-informed therapies, other things that kind of would understand how do you move from this place when the intensity is so high. And that's where I was introduced to Rita Bosey and Brilliant Healings and the trauma-informed work that she does with psychedelics. And then also got introduced to Sharon Stanley and her work around somatic trauma-informed therapy or somatic transformation. And those were kind of really big game changers for myself. And also just even, for myself and just how I shifted on how I kind of help others.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your story and being so open and vulnerable with it. It definitely touches some places in me for sure, just on my own journey. And there's a lot of parallels with your story and mine, having that breakthrough, I call it, which definitely didn't feel like a breakthrough in the moment. But I don't know about you, but for me, it was one of the best things that happened to me was to get to that point, because it forced me to deal with all of my stuff that I was just ignoring up until that point, and would have kept ignoring if I wouldn't have been forced to deal with it. And so, it's just amazing to connect with another human and share these stories. And it's just profound. And I'm just honored to be holding this space or this container, however you want to describe it, and have you tell your story. And I truly feel like it's going to be able to help people for sure. As a lot of people are struggling out there. It's not an easy time to be a human. It's not an easy time to be a man in this world. And it's just thank you for sharing your story and being so open with it. So get back to your journey. So when you describe finding Rita, and just for the listeners, that's actually where you and I met, was at Rita's training here back in the fall. So I was participating in a cohort after the one that you took with her, and you were helping out with the training, and we met, and I just really felt a connection. And I'm just glad that we were able to get together and to share this story, your story, with everyone. And so where did that fall in line there with how you described your dark night of the soul? So did you find Rita, that was after your low point there?
Yeah, I think I found her around a similar time, and in a more kind of just before that kind of all went down, I had I had looked at the psychedelic kind of renaissance, or what's being called the shroom boom, and used to have a small gathering on my birthday, and we would just like have a conscious kind of ceremony, like just kind of group of people. And one birthday, a friend brought another friend, and that friend went into a trauma response. I didn't recognize it at the time, and I didn't have the courage to kind of step in and try to help this individual and what they were going through. And I felt a lot of guilt and shame of just this person showing up, which was supposed to be something kind of light. And then this person went into kind of the darkness and into their trauma, and I couldn't really support her in that way. And I heard about Rita, and Rita and I go to the same yoga studio. And then I'm beating myself up, like being like, like feeling really bad about that. And I look in the mirror at the yoga, I'm doing yoga, and the person behind me, she's quite small, is Rita. And I turned to Rita after class. I was like, hey, you don't know me. I know you. Do you think I could talk more on just kind of what you do? And at that time, I was still like working in commodities, wearing this suit and tie, and we had a meeting and I was rushing around. And so I show up kind of a little bit late, and Rita's, she's not happy. And, and, we had the call, and I know it's not going well. Like Rita has kind of written me off. Like, I'm not letting this oil and gas guy, he showed up 5 minutes late, who talks a mile a minute, into my cohort. And she was really talking and iterating, like, the embracing the divine feminine and the matriarchy that needs to heal. And I don't know what I said, but I said the patriarchy also needs to heal. Like, it's a balance of both, and the men need to find a better way of connection and how to be in relationship with our communities, just as, women as well. And I think she just saw like a little glimmer of something, and she was like, let me think about it. And so she kind of was like, yeah, you can start. Then this happens. And I'm like, I can't participate in this training. Like, I'm a fucking mess. And she's like, let's work together. Like, let's just, you and I kind of move through some stuff. You'll have a better appreciation of how this approach and way of moving with medicine or psychedelics works. And we did a session, and it really helped shift where I was at. I think it was more of I had the practices in me, but it was just a little bit enough to just create this like separation or forest through the trees, like just to get enough space away that I could be like, oh, okay, I can move through this. And so that kind of led kind of a personal journey of kind of quitting my job and really like just turning into myself, of exploration and vision quests and a whole bunch of other things. But Rita's stuff was a really big piece, as well as the underlying kind of foundation of what Rita teaches is that kind of somatic, right brain, polyvagal stuff that I think is just really starting to gain momentum in the collective consciousness, which I think is really, really cool.
Yeah, for sure. And then to combine that with the psychedelics, it's just profound for sure. On their own, each of those things have amazing potential, but that combination there's something there for sure. I totally agree. So what would you say is sort of the thing that really can help people? Like, what advice would you give someone going through it right now? Where would they start? Who could they turn to? What could they do to get on the path to dealing with whatever it is that they're dealing with?
I think the first the first is like lean into your tribe. If it's a family member or whatever, it's just to have a sounding board of some kind, and that person to just be there, recognizing that not everyone has that support, but really try to find that, or a hotline, or just anyone to just give a sanity check, especially if you move into that, what I like to call crazy land. And crazy land is not sleeping. And so once that sleep starts to go and you start moving in that way, really start to look for others. And a little note is like 30% of the neurons in our brain are mirroring neurons. And so the people that you surround yourself with impact you a third. And so tribe for men, like hockey team, sports, whatever, if you're a gamer, lean into those people and really look to kind of have a place of authenticity of where you're at. From a practical side, once you kind of have sleep's okay, you're still in the hole. You have a little bit of where you're at is like, we can't think our way out of a feeling. And as guys, we're so good at thinking. We're so good at finding strategies. Okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do cold shower. I'm going to do breath work. I'm going to do that. Like, if you know that, if not, you're kind of looking like, okay, maybe I need a pill. Maybe I need whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you really want to start to just come down, we have to kind of get the nervous system somewhat regulated. And the way that we can regulate the nervous system is with the right brain, or with the inner creative, with the inner artist, with the inner feeler. And that's not necessarily something that comes to us, especially in this culture. Our culture is very left brain thinking, logic, A, B, I need the job to get the money, to get the house, to be able to do all the things that I want to do. And we rarely step in the moments of like stillness, of like, oh, can I actually like feel my breath in my body? Can I feel myself grounded? Can I take in the beauty of a sunset? Can I really feel a beautiful golf swing? A shot in hockey, a memory of just laughing uncontrollably. Like, things like that are kind of examples of the right brain, and that side, and that can really just help us understand this. And so even just being with, let's say if it's anxiety or depression, if we can understand what that is at kind of the qualities of what it is, it can help us even just be able to hold it there in the moment. And instead of getting spun up of like, I'm dealing with this pressure, I'm dealing with anxiety, I need to sleep because I got to go to work tomorrow to get the paycheck, and it just ends up having this opposite effect on us of just being like, let's get curious about what that is. And when you can kind of get to the point, you had the structure, you've talked to somebody, perhaps you're even seeking help, and if you don't have the resources there, just getting curious of like, okay, what is this? And a woman I really appreciate, Martha Beck, wrote a beautiful book recently called Beyond Anxiety. She likes to say, like, get to know your anxiety creature, or, you know, whatever that thing is you're dealing with, and look at it like, okay, this is a part of me that is hurting right now. And can I get curious of what are the qualities? What does it look like? What does it feel like? And then can I have compassion for this, call it creature or part, like you would for a pet that you love, for a family member, for what that is, and really just sit with that and just be with that. And that is probably the hardest part, is just the being with and finding compassion there. And it's a practice of vulnerability, as in men, of like allowing that emotion to come up, and then also leaning into community. And so that's a really big piece that is so pivotal to be moving with the nervous system, is we can only really access that nervous system from that felt sense of ourselves. Yeah. And so that, I'll just pause there. There's a lot of other little tools that in the toolkit, but that's probably one of the generally overarching thing of all of them.
Yeah. There's so much gold in what you've just said and described there, and I resonate with it deeply, with the portion about the regulated nervous system and how important that is, and how when you can regulate your nervous system real time, you know, off the pillow, that's the real work, right? Is when, because life is going to happen, and when you can use these tools that are available now, whether it's breath work or meditation or any other number of things, when you can deal with whatever's coming up and not go into a reaction mode and actually just deal and have a a clear head about moving forward, it's just, yeah, such a game changer. And then one other thing that you talked about is just that I think as men, we really have that aversion to feeling whatever it is coming up in our body, and we just want to drown it in alcohol or just push it down or whatever it is and just ignore it. And what I've found is when you bring that attention into your body, that, that somatic awareness, and you don't try and change whatever it is that's coming up, you just, like you mentioned, just be aware of it. Like, where is it in your body? What shape, or does it have a color, or any of those things? And you just bring that awareness without trying to change it or fix it in the moment. It's amazing to me how quickly it can move once that awareness has been brought to it. I feel like in a lot of cases, that's exactly the point of whatever that is, that anxiety or that bad inner feeling. It's trying to bring your awareness to something that's out of alignment in your life and your being. And when you bring your awareness, that right brain, to whatever it is, it's amazing to me how quickly it can shift and reduce and just move. And that was something that I had to learn the hard way by pushing things down for decades until I came to my breakthrough, where that process of just pushing things down anytime I'd be reminded of hard things, traumas that I'd dealt with in my life. And when I was forced to finally feel some of those things, it wasn't as scary as I made it out to be. It, wasn't easy, of course, but I think in a lot of cases we make it out to be worse than what it actually is going to be. And you don't need to relive anything. You don't need to, go back to really traumatic things and like relive it all. I feel like you just have to go and feel some things. And when you start to do that, it moves and it shifts and it processes. And then you can move forward in a positive way. And what I found is I'm now able to have that regulated nervous system when hard things happen in my life. And certainly I'm not saying that I'm perfect. I still get, sensitized to things and react in ways that are, not always the best. But I will say that through the tools that I've gained and the awareness and all of the work and healing I've done, it's just, I'm able to rein that in more real time. And I just feel like that's the work when we're able to do that. And so, yeah, I just like to, just chat about what you're doing, what you're bringing to the world. So with the hypnotherapy, with the training from Rita, with the somatic awareness, the Sharon Stanley training, just, really curious what you're doing and how you're bringing that to people.
For sure. And I think there's a few things in there that I've really kind of weaving now. And Sharon Stanley, I was just fortunate to be on a work like a 4-day workshop with her, and she's in her 80s, and this woman is just the vitality of the people that were there that were really older and who had gone through so much. I was so curious on what they all had in common. And it was when the term thresholds of when you meet these big, huge life events, call it trauma or just ruptures or death or whatever, it was how they moved through that so that they continued to stay healthy and well was really, really cool. So yeah, I'd love to do a deeper dive with her if she's still has the health to do that. And what's interesting is I'm very interested in following things back to what where is these practices come from? And I found myself coming back to kind of Chinese energetic medicine. So Qigong. And Qigong is one of the oldest martial arts that were used for essentially regulating the nervous system without calling that, or PTSD. You'd have these dynasties fight and you'd come back, and then how would you work to go back to being a farmer? Or you had the Shaolin monks who would like protect, and how would they keep themselves balanced? And the Qigong aspect is all about, it's about like bringing balance into the nervous system. It's like, hey, can we step into fight and flight response, and can we move back to rest? And I've just found that such a beautiful kind of practice that I've also been weaving in. But when I think about what I offer, and I like kind of two things. I like to think of, I just share these teachings and kind of put these practices on how you can learn them yourself. A lot of misconceptions is like around hypnosis. I think the big one we have is like, it's something being done to you. And then it gets caught up in like the stage hypnosis, like going around and just kind of the entertainment. And then unfortunately, kind of these kind of traveling salesman people that go around and be like, come for a weekend workshop and you'll be cured of smoking, right? Like these big claims. And it's unfortunate that that's been a part of the hypnosis, I guess, canon. But really what it is it's really just two things. It's like, one, can I make a somatic connection into my body through emotion or a felt sense? And it's kind of like our Wi-Fi signal to the subconscious or to the right brain. And then can I allow imagination to express what those feelings are to gain insight to what's there? And so the process is, one, can I make that connection? And so I teach people how to kind of align and kind of connect into themselves through that. And then two, can I use my intention and allow this imagination either through the body or maybe even into an upper, like a visualization, to go to the root cause of what's there, a limiting belief, a feeling that's always been there, but you don't know why. So, these patterns get lied down from birth or pre-birth to 25 with neuroplasticity. And so these go back a long way, and we try to logically think where they've come from. And if it's something we're still dealing with, it's something that can't be answered with that part of our brain. And so once we go in and kind of feel our way into that root cause, can we allow what needs to be felt there? Like if, a little side note is we talk about nervous systems and how we can compartmentalize and stuff things down. And so we have two ways. We can either have these big blow-ups as just going with men with anger, or we go stonewall, right? Like, hey, I can't do this. I'm fine. And we like disassociate. And that's another form of just a dysregulated nervous system. You could be like, oh, I'm good. Yeah, but you're not here. You're way back here trying to bracket this anger or these emotions that are coming up. So once we allow ourselves to go in and actually truly have that feeling of expression of either through maybe a memory, it's important to know that memories aren't necessarily real, so we don't really hold on to them too strong, but just allowing whatever needs to be expressed, feeling that. And then once that's been released, looking at that from our present selves. So we might have a fixed action pattern or a belief that we had when we were 4. And it was great when we were 4. And at 44, it no longer serves us. And so can we look back and see what we've moved through and be like, what's my perspective now in this present sense? And then from there, that's where the wiring and the things can really create long-lasting change. Almost like riding a bike. Once you kind of see that and you've seen it, like once you've seen something, you can't unsee it. Once you've felt through it, it's like, okay, what's there and what's what's the way of being that I want to have in this place? So once I've let go or released kind of this really stuck energy or this stuck emotion or feeling, sensation, or belief, what do I want to be in its place? And that desire or that connection doesn't come from a thinking like, I want a nice car. It comes from that deep connection to the right side of the brain. And from there, something comes up. And it's unique to everybody. And it's a mystery. And it's one of the coolest mysteries. And one of the reasons why I love this work is we go on a journey. I think the format that I really like is we do 4 sessions over 6 weeks, almost like a personal trainer. I like the idea of being able to work these practices so that when you leave, you know, like you can take these into other situations. We might be dealing with one thing, if it's anxiety or depression, for this 6 weeks, but then life happens and you're like, okay, I can find this balance a little bit better. And this balance, like when you're in it, you feel like there's no way I can do this. This works too much. And you have all this story, but it's kind of like riding a bike or learning to swim. And it's like, once you kind of have it, it's kind of there. Like still you want to practice and move through it because you just feel better when you have these embodiment practices or these ways to kind of connect in. And yeah. And so I've kind of always thought of, I've wrote a blog podcast, or I've kind of talked to friends as I'm like, you are the psychedelic. And they're like, what do you mean you are the psychedelic? I'm like, well, psychedelics are kind of like the window. Like you can go and look outside, like it gives you a nice perspective of things and you can move through things. But like your practice is really like the door, like you going through and doing the things on a daily basis, on a weekly basis is what really changes. And when we go into that work, it's kind of this practice. And then the experiential side is I'm just I'm just helping with mental furniture. Like I'm just there, just similar to how you're doing this podcast, like you're kind of tossing out invitations with questions. I kind of just help kind of guide a person and stay in that trance receptive state that's really rich in firing of neurons and everything like that. And then I'm just handing like how does this tool feel? It's like, no, not that tool. Or, like, okay, you can do this by yourself. You can pull the big couch or the big fridge through your house. It takes a lot of work to do that. And it's great to do that. But if someone just comes and just like, hey man, can I just help you with the end of this couch? It can really help move things a little bit quicker. And then, yeah, sometimes that psychedelic can be a really benefit if when you're really stuck or kind of add into that experience. I don't know if it's necessarily, as I sit here today, if like it's really gaining momentum, and I think it's so amazing. And I think there's going to be so many positives, but through experiences, through breath work and hot, cold stuff and yoga nidra, like other things, I've found other ways, like entry points. And if that might sound odd for someone who's not done a psychedelic, but essentially it kind of pulls you into a space of where that mind chatter, that ego just kind of dials down, the volume kind of dials down. And then this internal, whatever it is, kind of turns up a bit. And it's almost like that music or that volume is always kind of playing, and it just kind of shifts. It just kind of turns one volume down and turns the other volume up. And it doesn't mean that you need psychedelics to get there. Sometimes it's like you can find practices to just listen deeper or whatnot. And it's a bit of a ramble on a bunch of stuff there, but I'll pause and let you kind of chime in.
Yeah. I think what you're getting at is turning down the mind and turning up the body. We inhabit the most sophisticated healing device that we know of. And we just need to get out of our own way in a lot of cases. And I feel like hypnosis, breath work, psychedelics, all these different modalities are tools in order to turn down that thinking, rationalizing, analyzing all the things going on, 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and 90+% of them are the same as what you had yesterday, is turning that down and getting out of your own way so your body can heal. We know how to heal. We just, again, get in our own way. And what I love about what you're talking about is, well, number one, we're dealing with root cause stuff. So we're not band-aiding symptoms or, just trying to mask the thing that's coming up because of the root cause. We're actually getting in there and dealing with that root cause stuff. So then all the symptoms just go away because you've dealt with the problem at the root. And I just feel like that's something that we've really gone away from in our modern world. And I have my own theories on why that's happened. And a lot of them have to do with greed and corruption and money, unfortunately. But I also feel a lot of hope for the future with things coming out, and it shifting from being about making money to like actually what's beneficial for people and what's going to help them on their journeys. And it's just really cool to connect with someone who's doing that exact thing and who is helping people on a really deep level, and not to pull resources out of them or, get the maximum amount of money out of a person or whatever. It's like actually for their benefit and to help them on their healing journey. And just one more thing is just how you're describing to just, help them move that furniture around is such a cool analogy, because we're, as the facilitator or the breathwork facilitator or any leader of a healing session, we are just providing that container for you to heal. Because again, you are your own healer and you are your own psychedelic, like how you just described. And I just really resonate with a lot of what you've just said, for sure. All right. So what about daily practices? What would be some stuff that you would recommend for people struggling with anxiety or dysregulated nervous system? What's your kind of go-to that has been really beneficial for you?
Yeah, I think there is something to be said about a cold shower. I'm so sorry for the people that are listening who don't want this, but I'm curious, because it's like, one, it definitely puts you in a aroused state. Like, it definitely puts that sympathetic response there, but there's something there when you consciously do that. It's like you're building kind of your capacity, like your window of tolerance. And so if we think about a nervous system and a skill, the skill is really balanced. Like, can we make this fulcrum a little bit wider so we don't flip fully one side? And then once we're out of balance or one way, how can we move to a more homeostasis regulated state? And so the cold shower, and it doesn't have to be much, does some really cool things. Recommend people listening to Huberman's podcast. He's done a lot of work on this. But you have a couple things going on. One, that grit of just doing something hard in the morning, especially regardless of if it's, when your nervous system's so dysregulated, it's so exhausting. And you might not even realize it. It might be this, like, it's a grind to do anything. And then you're beating yourself up. There's something there. It's something when you get into you consciously do that, it kind of awakens the sympathetic side. But then it also is like, one, we kind of release some dopamine, which is going to just help us just kind of feel a little bit better. A lot of studies out there with people that are neurodivergent or ADHD just having lower levels of dopamine in general. And so that can lead into interesting behaviors or whatnot. So one, we can kind of get that dopamine, and we can get that dopamine that lasts a little bit, kind of more balanced. It's not this huge peak and then this crash. And then we have kind of neuroepinephrine, which is adrenaline, and another chemical called acetylcholine. And one of the cool things about those is those kind of open the gateways of neuroplasticity. And so when we think of trying to really create change after the age of 25, it's really hard to do that. Unless, let's say, 10,000 years ago, we were getting chased by a saber-toothed tiger, or maybe we make it to 30. We're going to learn really quick on what we did wrong so we don't do this again. And so we kind of step into that place of like our body's going, oh, wait, why am I in cold water right now, first thing in the morning? This is uncomfortable. And if you can be with it and just kind of be with your breath, a longer exhale than an inhale is really kind of balancing that nervous system. And so once I get out of the cold shower, I sit and I kind of have, what I do now is it's called tea ceremony, and it's just sitting with tea, and it's just sitting with tea very consciously. It can just be leaves in a bowl. The reason why tea ceremony came up is I found it so challenging just to sit with a regular meditation, especially when I was so dysregulated, that it would just put me back into the thinking, ruminating, and everything. And when I could just come in and just be like, I'm just pouring the tea, I'm just doing whatever. It could be whatever. You could make a conscious Lego ceremony. And you're just with Lego and you're just with your breath. It can be something that you do, or maybe you can just sit. And I sit for 24 minutes. 24 minutes is the average time for the mind to calm down. But if you don't have that, like 3-minute cold shower and a couple mindful moments, like you're gonna feel a little bit better. But if you have the time to just sit for 24 or do a little thing or a puzzle, something that's kind of taking out that that logic side of the brain, painting, anything that's going to go into that kind of right side. So find a moment, I guess, where you can do a little bit of right side of creativity, journaling, poetry, whatever. Kind of have a moment like that. And that's kind of the first two things I do in the morning. And then the third thing is some type of movement to just get your heart rate up. We tend to think of exercise having to be this huge ordeal and going and have to be a big thing. For myself, I have a Tabata timer clock. That's 20 seconds of work, 10 seconds rest, 8 rounds, 4 minutes. So it's like, can I do something for 4 minutes? Yeah, I can do something for 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a kettlebell or a squat or whatever, or push up. I do that. And I usually pick 4 exercises. So I'm done in 16 minutes. And so those are the kind of things when I kind of start that day. I start off with something hard, which is cold shower. I have a mindful moment where I can be my right brain, and then I have a little bit of physical activity. And those are like my three like big pillars that I've really set myself up for a daily practice. And then there's a bunch of other stuff throughout the day. Maybe I get to it. Maybe life gets in the way and I can't get to it, but I really try to make those 3 things that take, cold shower takes 5 minutes. If you go at it right away, then you have, call it 25 minutes. So you're 30 minutes there, and then 16 minutes. So you're done. You're 46 minutes, 50 minutes, and you're set up in a really good way. And so that's my daily go-to for just a practice from that perspective.
Cool. Yeah, I love how it's not a long, drawn-out thing that's unattainable for a lot of people. This is stuff that we can all find 16 minutes or, 3 minutes here for a shower, whatever it is. And so, yeah, it's really good. And I think it's good for people to hear that it doesn't have to be this big, long, drawn out thing. So that's awesome. Yeah, it sounds amazing. I'm going to try some of the stuff you just suggested for sure, because it all sounds amazing. I just wanted to share a story really quick about how you talked about being chased by the saber-toothed tiger back in the day. And so I feel like as humans, we're not in tune with nature as much as we used to be, of course, just with the way we're living, so out of touch with nature. And so it was about a month ago, my dog, so she was pregnant, and she's since had pups. And so I took her to the vet to have an ultrasound. And so we had to flip her on her back and hold her down at the vet clinic. And so it was like a traumatic experience for her. And so we got out of the vet clinic, everything looked good. And we go to the parking lot and there was fresh snow. And I'd never seen her do this before, but she started basically just running with her face on the ground and just rubbing her face in the snow and physically burying her head under the snow and just kind of rolling around, just doing all this stuff that I'd literally never seen her do before. And not right in the moment, but shortly thereafter, I had this realization. I'm like, oh, she's somatically releasing that trauma, that, difficult situation she just went through. She's releasing it naturally. There's all just instinct. And then she's, 5 minutes later, whatever it was, she was back to normal, good to go. And she didn't have this process that I feel like a lot of us humans do, is where something bad happens to us and we just internalize it and bring it in and trap it and hold on to it. And we never have an outlet to just move it. And so it was a really good lesson for me just to see how naturally how I think we're supposed to deal with bad things. And when you watch other animals in the wild, right, the deer that gets chased by the lion or whatever, once they're safe and back with their herd, they just they physically shake, and then they're back to grazing within a short amount of time. Their heart rate's back down. Those stress hormones have all worked their way out of their system, and it's just coming back to that equilibrium, that homeostasis. And so I feel like the practices that you've just described are amazing tools to be able to shake that stuff off that happens to us and come back to that regulated state.
Yeah, that's hammer on the nail on that one. That's one of the things. And one of the things I've been really enjoying with this Qigong stuff that I'm currently studying and hopefully do a master's in, or maybe a doctor. I don't know. It's a deep rabbit hole, but one of the really cool things is the idea of we have this Qi, which is this energy that runs through us, and it can get stagnant or out of balance. And so you purge, tone, and regulate. And so much of what it is so just getting back to just allowing the body to do what it needs to do. One of the purging exercises is trembling horse, where you just literally shake, and sometimes you're not even why am I doing this? And you don't know why, and you just kind of go with it. And then you just kind of go through these movements that have been mapped out for thousands of years. And the weirdest thing is you don't know why. You might be like, man, I'm just having a good day. Why am I having such a I feel really kind of balanced? Or somebody cuts you off and you're just like, oh yeah, cool. Yeah, come in, no biggie. You just have a thing there. And that's what I've kind of enjoyed, is that kind of piggybacking your dog's experience of we hold all this in because, you get an email, it triggers a response, but we can't have that response openly, or our nervous systems weren't built for the world that we're in. And so we just have to sit with it, even though every cell in our body wants to run away or fight or do whatever, and it can't do that. And so finding kind of the outlets where the nervous system can release what's been built up, and so key.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're getting to about the hour mark, and so just give you one opportunity or just some time here just to let people know how they can get in contact with you and kind of what services you're offering. And yeah, and then we'll include any links or anything like that in the show notes as well for people if they're looking to heal and move through some stuff and yeah, take your tools and incorporate them into their own lives.
Beautiful. Yeah, you can reach me at mindflowtherapeutics.com or out on Instagram at mindflowtherapeutics. Those are the best ways to reach me. We can have a call. I really work in the taking people through that journey and experience. So reaching out for a discovery call to just kind of get an idea of what that looks like, in addition to what we've chatted about here. And then, just here to help share these teachings that have been around in many different forms for many different years to help you kind of be able to go and use them in life, and then be your mental furniture guy when there's some heavy things that need some lifting. And so, yeah, you can reach me out at Mindflow Therapeutics. If you're in Calgary, we can do that in person, or the most part, I do it online. And so it's a really cool way to do that on that side. And yeah, so.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, thank you again very much for sharing your wisdom and your story and being so open and vulnerable with it. I truly feel like you're going to be able to help a massive amount of people with just your energy and the way you show up, and these tools that you have. They just have a ton of potential to help people, and again, get to that root cause, whatever it is. Like, let's deal with that, and then the symptoms will be gone because you've dealt with the issue. So thank you very much for being you and showing up in that authentic way, and sharing so openly. It's just really been an honor.
Oh, it's been an honor for me too, Nick. And I hope this is a conversation, not the last one. I hope we continue to cross paths, and who knows, maybe there's events or something that we can come up with that work well, and kind of bring these teachings and practices and ways of living well to more people.
Yeah, definitely. I love being able to weave these different modalities together and seeing what works for people and what resonates, because I feel like there's just so much value in all of these tools, and for certain individuals, blending them in a certain way is just next level in terms of being helpful for different people. And I'm very open to collaborating and mixing and seeing what we can come up with.
Awesome, man. Well, this was great, and I hope you have a great evening.
Thank you. You as well.
All right,
everyone. Thanks for joining in. We'll see you on the next one.